Good afternoon on what is a bright, warm and breezy day. It is Tuesday, May the 10th, and I've got a nice hot cup of tea and a cat who is not ours on my lap, and this parcel to unbox. Knife out, keep his nose clear. All right, yes, I am paying you attention. Not enough, I know. So let's get this open. So just slice the. Sorry about this. He really does want a bit more attention than I anticipated, but it's a cat for you. There we go. Let's get this open. And inside, what I have is that. It's a role-playing game called The Spy Game. This is published by Black Cats Gaming, distributed by Modivius Entertainment, and it is a espionage role-playing game compatible with Dungeons and Dragons with 5th edition. So, take on secret missions and covert operations in a clandestine world. Welcome agent, enter a world of international espionage and action in a modern setting. Delve into a world of spies, assassins, diabolical masterminds and suave secret agents. The Spy Game is an action and espionage role-playing game built using the 5th edition of the world's most famous role-playing game. Peer behind the curtain of society into the world of agencies and take your place as a world-class spy. Together with your crew of con artists, specialists, infiltrators and hackers, you will influence, subvert and overcome any challenge. Will you topple corrupt governments or protect the interests of the highest bidder? Will you take out the target before they achieve their aims, or capture them for intel? Will you counter worldwide threats or become them yourselves? The Spy Game places your own intelligence agency on the world stage where the promise of adventure awaits you. So, build your own incredible spy, from a rough wilderness explorer to a tuxedo charmer and everything in between. Create your own spy stories of action and adventure in a covert world. Unleash a host of minions, villains and evil genius NPCs. Explore the world of the Spy Game and its agencies engaged in every type of espionage across the globe. Use a familiar role-playing system to get right into the action and design complex plots and deadly encounters for challenging missions and full-throttle campaigns. That's all there on the blurb. So, there have been quite a few espionage role-playing games over the years. Most obviously Top Secret from TSR, going right back to 1980, and then 84 you have James Bond 007 role-playing from Victory Games, which ultimately remains the pinnacle of espionage role-playing games. None have come as quite as close as that, really. Spycraft was popular from AEG during the D20 system period, and there have been others. So a lot of them sort of like within the storytelling tradition rather than sort of like the traditional role-playing game. But here we have a 5th edition treatment of the subject, and from its tone on the back, you kind of get the impression that it's definitely veering towards the kind of James Bond kind of super spy end of things, and that's no bad thing, you know, if that's what you enjoy, and if you you avoid sort of like some of the issues that people have with James Bond, the silly, whether the ridiculous plot, over the top plots, or misogyny of the character, you'll have a high old time. Yes, all right, yes, you're still here. Sorry, I mean, it's appropriate entirely that I'm sat here with a cat on my lap doing a review of a spy role-playing game after all. So clearly he's the one in charge here, it's not me. Let's open. And inside, nice cover, nice action cover. I'd say rather dark map in there. It's actually easier to read than I thought it would be, but that's still not easy. Then inside, contents page, quite a lengthy contents page. This is 260 odd pages, and then we get to characters and equipment. Welcome to Spy Game Agent, and here you've got the beginning of the rules for what characters do. So covering things, how to play a role-playing game, save the world, grab some dice, get going, the truth behind the fiction, Handling things like the story card, the X card for safety tools and the like. And then we've got sort of a nice bit of background, here with excerpt from the Well-Rounded Agents Toolkit training manual available for all new recruits. So nice bit of in-game setting material, and also it's essentially advising new players new to the genre. Before we get into character, experience table there, nice artwork. Before we get into the different classes, so obviously you've got the face, the hacker, the infiltrator, I mean each of these have got a list of archetypes as well, so you've got a full list of archetypes for the infiltrator there. Let's see what else we got. Oh, martial artist. The medic. The ranger, and that's not that's the sort of like not the traditional range of D&D, but basically someone who operates in the wilderness, the soldier, the technician. It's all over the place. You've got, you've also got technician archetypes, backgrounds. And then we get into backgrounds and background traits. See if you compare those classes up with things like, say, the academic, the athlete, con artist, criminal, law enforcement, scientist, and so on. And then, essentially options for multi-classing if that's what you want to do. Standard equipment, for example, armour for doing those, assault missions, weapons. Generally quite modern there in the choice of weapons. Basically they've been genericized, of course, but I mean, you don't necessarily have to have them all names, but it helps. When I do a bit of role playing, I do like what weapon am I armed with, what piece of equipment, just to give it a bit of a verisimilitude. It gives it a bit of colour and background for the setting before we get into gadgets. And so, also obviously a mainstay of certain aspects of the genre. And then, so we've got things like armour resistance or bullet catching shield, chameleon suit, composite metal foam armour. That's just a list of armour. So you've got plenty of options there. Weapons, ammunition or amphibious firearm, cluster grenades, just extra things there. Palm flamethrower. Sorry, just watching a cat that is not ours sneak up on a pigeon, so I may have to intervene in a minute. Electronics and security, lots of gadgets, especially in the modern world. That's what we're really dealing with. Medical and survival gear. Oh, pigeon's flown off. Whether that's sort of adrenal stimulant shot or a blinding toxin. You wouldn't necessarily use it. Some of the characters wouldn't necessarily use all of them, but some of the villains would. Then we get to vehicles and support. So that includes stuff with artillery support or artillery strike. And we've got stats for things like highly toppled gunships, unmanned combat area vehicles. So we kind of get up quite up to date and modern for if you want to use UAVs. drones. We've got rules for vehicle combat and handling chases, along with a list of equipment. Vehicles. So you get some idea of sort of like what the art game is like, the sort of dynamic artwork, and sort of action scenes. We go all the way up to heavy goods vehicles like buses and trucks and armoured trucks, tanks, helicopters, from private helicopters to attack helicopters, and then drones, and then we get into playing the game. It's advice for the game master in general, just sort of like, as you would expect. Using inspiration to gain bonuses on your dice rolls, how to use skills, and then structural missions and how to write them. Again, nice artwork, and it's a nice clean book as well. So lots of stuff in here, and then we have things in like between missions, dealing with your life there, lifestyle expenses, downtime activities. So it covers inventing equipment, practicing a profession, recuperating, gathering intelligence and training. And then we actually, so we're quite a way into the book before we actually get on to combat. Interesting. It was interesting, sort of like, even has rules in here for squeezing into spaces. Agents can squeeze into small spaces, defined as half the normal space. So gaps down to about 2.5 feet wide. And then we actually get to the meat of sort of like rolling the dice and so on. Melee attacks, cover, it's all in there, damage and healing, just as you would expect for a role-playing game. So if we flip on, very modern of course, rules for hacking and using hacking tools. We've got a list of those, such as Dave's tool, which breaks through a password firewall using dictionary and incremental attacks to find a password, or keylogger. It's all there. And then opposing that, you've got a list of firewalls that your hacker can go up against. We've got more information, more in-game information there. There's not as much of this as perhaps I hoped, but that's fine. And then running the game for the game master. And it says here, when is the spy game set? Spy game is perfectly vague on specific times and chronology for a number of reasons. Firstly, spy equipment and tactics tend to be years ahead of the commercially available alternatives, making for more interesting fantastical settings and games. Trying the game to a specific set of dates, but it's hard to play the missions that you want to play in the way you want to play them. So it's designed to sort of like, so it can cover missions in the here and now, but if you take out a lot of the technological items, you can push it back to the 60s and even earlier. And then we've got a discussion with a few real-world agents like the CIA, MI6, SVR-FF for the Russians, Mossad rule for the Research Analysis Wing for India, and then MSS for China. And we've got a guide to sort of like building and handling agencies with their own threats and traits, and what they do. So here is sort of like, it's really getting into sort of like the background of them, and I think obviously we've got a sample agency with Tagabonot, or Bono, I'm going to pronounce that. Streetworks, essentially washouts, failures or injured assets who have been forced into early retirement. The agents of Streetworks are an amalgam with the best discarded specialists in the world. Almost a bit like the Slow Horses or Slow House series by Mick Herron, but they're not the best. But in that they're not the best, but definitely the washouts. Even the Caledonian Spy Group is the Scottish spy agency, which seeks to progress Scotland's interest on the world stage following its split from MI5 in 2019. I have no doubt that will happen. I mean, but it is amusing because obviously that's not happened yet that we know of. And then we've got creating missions and campaigns. More advice from GM. So types of missions, creating the play, and we're going to play in creating the player, their characterization, see if you're not using ones previously and given details of, exploring campaigns by theme, and the basically just guidance for the handler, or as the GM is known. And we have options, which is variants like cinematic and realistic reloading, playing, handling NPCs, managing a table, safety tools, and nice touch. We have the Moscow rules of game mastery. So the Moscow rules are an informal collection of rules said to be followed by spies on all sides in the Cold War. In Cold War Moscow, nobody knows who created them. But anyone that worked in the business knew that there's some truth to them. We're taking those rules and applied them from here as advice for the GMs. So assume nothing, never go up against your gut. Everyone is potentially under opposition control. Do not look back, you are never alone. Go with the flow, blend in, vary your pattern and stay within your cover. Lull them into a sense of complacency. Do not harass the opposition. Pick the time and place for placement action. Keep your options open. So these, I would actually say, to some extent, kind of run a bit counter to the nature of the game, which is a role-playing game of action and espionage. They're very much espionage, and they're much drier, less action-orientated than the spy game. They're definitely more Smiley and Le Carre than Fleming and Bond. Anyway, it's still good that they're in there. And then we have Villains and Masterminds, complete with, he's got a black cat, not a white cat. That's an entertaining and sort of fun reversal of the stereotype. We've got a few stats, so various stats for various NPCs before we get down to some villains. There we go. Full stats and details of backgrounds of villains. And a con man. All that the GM can use. The count for when you really want that aristocratic mastermind at the centre of things, and that's everything in there. Don't get an adventure, that's fine. You can easily create one from real world circumstances if you want to, and there are spy adventures to be found. And I've just got my own black cat turn up. I'm not that villainous mastermind. But anyway, that's the spy game published by Black Cats Gaming. No surprise that they've actually chosen to have the Black Cat in here rather than a white cat. Perfect in keeping, I say, with both the genre and the company name. Well played. Anyway, that's the spy game by Black Cats Gaming. I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing look. If you have, please click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box and a book or game which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea and occasionally a cat or another, then please do hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.